We just finished a very powerful movement, which is the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And if I just juxtapose the kind of response we saw from biggies like, in Bollywood versus the response we saw from Hollywood, I think, Bollywood left a lot to be desired, and just in terms of standing together and encouraging the movement, because I think somewhere they were still operating from fear. And I guess, every industry has their own concerns, but one would have expected more from Bollywood because this was an important movement.
I think people were perhaps overwhelmed. I don't think they could wrap their head around what was happening. It was happening all too fast, all too quickly, and it was historic. It was, according to me, a revolution, and it brought about a purge. It absolutely did. You have perpetrators who aren't working anymore. So it definitely it made a huge impact from where I stand, and in my perception, that's a huge impact. And what the movement should have done, I think it has. It has changed to a large extent the way men think.
You think so?
I think so.
Because the next one I want to
No,
talk
I
to you
think
about.
every man thinks twice now. They're afraid. They're feared. They're like, if we do something wrong, it's going to be called out and caught out. I think it's made a huge impact at the ground level.
Ranveer, you did a very bold ad with Durex, right? So you'd be the right person. And you please tell me, what is wrong with understanding consent in this country? Do you think there's a fundamental problem in understanding consent?
I think it's a very, very, it's a very complex question to respond to, because what is the line? What a guy is hitting on a girl, and from his point of what might be coming on too hard from her perspective may not be, that's not, where's the line drawn? What the line is for her may not be the line for him. This is a completely gray area. So there is no straight answer to that. These things are very, very complex. It's to do with human interaction. Humans are so complex, and when two humans engage with each other, it's too complex. There is no straight answer to it. This guy apni taraf se is poor chap. He's trying to hit on a girl, but when lines aren't very obviously crossed, it falls into a very gray area. You'll find a guy, wondering, hey, was I inappropriate? Was that inappropriate? It's too gray. It's too complex. There's no straight answer to it, because the threshold is different for each person. It's a very individual thing.
So tell me, I don't know if you've seen this Levi's ad, which was, in my opinion, one of the greatest examples of consent, and you probably would have, because I think you're pretty well tuned into content. It was a Levi's ad a long time ago. Consent is when the woman, when the woman raises her hips, right, at that pivotal point before the jeans are ripped out. That's consent. It's untold, but it's consent, and that's what that ad showed. It was again a very, very bold ad, progressive for its time. But do you think India needs to do educational training for consent? Because clearly, consent seems to be very confusing for men.
200%, yeah. I think these things have to start from the very foundational, at a very foundational level, a very fundamental level. Parents need to pass that on to their kids. Schools need to pass that on to their students. It's about what you understand of the world and of these interactions growing up.
What is your opinion of the understanding of consent with Indian men?
I do think we have for the longest time lived in a very patriarchal society. Men feel very, very entitled as a species, at least in my surroundings. But fortunately for me, I've had an upbringing where my father's been the provider. He was always out trying to be the best provider that he could for our family. And in the sense, I got raised by 4 women, by my mom, my sister, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. So I have a very different way of looking at it. But I do find, And then I also studied in America where, you know, the gender dynamics are very different.
Absolutely.
The outlook and view on sex is very different.
Sure.
So I've had that kind of exposure as well. But I do see around me um, guys who have some really warped, you know,
Understanding of
yeah,
of consent.
of just their sense of entitlement, you know,
Exactly.
is just it's deeply ingrained. They laugh at you if you tell them otherwise. You know, I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that you know, as a thought leader, maybe, I don't know, call it what you want. I can contribute towards some of the a positive change in that sense. In
For
what
sure.
in my in By just leading by example, by just being, you know, I'm hoping I can make some kind of small contribution. But yeah, it's very uphill, and it's too slow moving. But then again, the Me Too movement was historic, revolutionary. I think it's really made guys stop and think,
Sure.
and that itself is a big thing. So I think it's been hugely impactful and significant.